Welcome everybody to this session in which Silpa and I hopefully will be providing you with very insightful information about the application process at Stanford Business School. Silpa is a former reader at the admissions office from Stanford, and she's an MBA alum from Cornell, and I graduated from Stanford and devoted several years to conducting interviews for the school. And so with that, we want to share with you our insights, our experience, and everything we have learned throughout the process of working with multiple candidates in their applications. And so with that, Silpa, let's get straight into the content of our conversation today. So tell me, what from your perspective is so unique about Stanford?
Thank you, Tatiana. So the GSB MBA program is fueled and characterized by innovation and collaboration. The students at Stanford are really passionate about making a positive impact, and the GSB is dedicated to empowering them to grow into the leaders who will affect change in their communities, in their organizations, and throughout the world around them. So the GSB empowers its students to become more innovative thinkers by exposing them to rigorous core courses, hundreds of case analyses, experiential learning opportunities, world-renowned faculty and expert practitioners, and innovative teaching methodologies. Students will engage in scenarios, in role plays for different management concepts, as well as in simulations and global immersions. Learning at the GSB isn't siloed. The program is very much structured in a way that enables students to expand their mindsets by meeting new people, by discovering new ideas, and exploring new paths and opportunities. And this is across the GSB campus, as well as across all of Stanford University as a whole. Now, as you may know, the GSB is known for its strong offerings in tech, in VC, entrepreneurship, and social impact. But what's equally unique is that the collaboration between the graduate schools at Stanford is also quite powerful. For example, Stanford has a terrific engineering school and design schools, and both of those schools' programs, they frequently collaborate with the GSB to offer unique classes and experiences. And furthermore, to encourage this exploration, there is a policy of the grade non-disclosure. So students really can feel free to pursue different learning opportunities, which will all help to shape their perspective. Another defining characteristic of the GSB experience is that it's a place where you can truly build your community. A common stereotype, perhaps, of these elite or high caliber MBA programs is a super competitive, cutthroat environment. But there's a real culture of support, accessibility, and vulnerability at the GSB. Students are going to spend each day working alongside talented, diverse, and engaged classmates from all over the world. It really is a collaborative environment, and open and honest feedback is a key to the experience. There's also opportunity to build community beyond the cohort itself, given the spirit of innovation that very much permeates the campus and is influenced by the neighboring Silicon Valley. Students will benefit from the guidance of the Silicon Valley innovators and can very much leverage the network of the many classes of Stanford alumni that have come before them as they move throughout the journey. And beyond the innovation and the collaboration piece, what's equally notable is the focus on the personal leadership development. This program really enables students to develop an understanding of how their behaviors impact others and how to build connections with others to expand their sphere of influence. Students will learn to lead with responsibility while gaining exposure to different leadership styles and frameworks and getting candid feedback along the way. One example of this is during the first quarter, MBA students will hone their soft skills in leadership labs. In this course, they'll answer questions like, how do you motivate people? How do you have difficult conversations? How do you build alignment? this culminates in an all-day simulation called the Executive Challenge, where they put those skills into practice. And perhaps one of the most well-known offerings is interpersonal dynamics, also known as touchy-feely, which has been the most popular elective for dozens and dozens of years straight. And in this class, students practice key leadership skills with peer feedback, and they learn how to connect across differences, how to communicate with others, and strengthen their influence. So overall, the GSB truly does espouse the belief that its students have the power to change the future and create a life of impact. So the 2 years at Stanford are really going to just grant the knowledge and the skills to be bold and to inspire action, allowing students to work toward achieving their professional aspirations, while also making great progress in terms of their own personal development. So turning over the next question to you, Tatiana, what is Stanford's culture and who is a good fit?
Yeah, and building on all the offering and all the elements that you have shared, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into the components, which are going to be quite familiar with the components of what is being sought through the different applications. And so first off, the one of the key ingredients that is being looked into any of the applicants, and that is going to constitute a big chunk of the culture, is this intellectual curiosity, intellectual vitality that you were making reference to. And in that, it can manifest in your direct professional sphere. It can manifest in your passions and your extracurricular interests. It can manifest in community engagement. It can manifest in so many ways. But what's important is that intellectual vitality is something that can be evidenced and that we can almost like pinpoint it. And so that permeates into the culture. You're going to have a lot of individuals that are very vibrant and very energetic, and that are going to be constantly asking and constantly posing different ways of tackling things, different perspectives. So that's one piece. Another piece that's very important is that proven academic and social stamina. Again, like through the different bits and pieces of the application, there has been there's evidence that's been sought in terms of individuals being able to withstand rigorous and demanding programs. And in doing that, they are also expecting that to permeate to the rhythm and the intensity of everyday life at the GSB. And so in that regard is that you'll also be surrounded by individuals that are thirsty to know, thirsty to consume more knowledge, and that they are also very inclined to connecting and building networks and staying very close with all the other individuals in the class. Another element which permeates from these last one I mentioned is this thirst to connect. It's not being passive, isolated, inert. It is to be in constant motion, constant connection, and then building whatever there was not before, through connections or through all these energy and networking ideas and projects and different situations. So that's really the culture. That's going to be experienced there, and in turn is what makes a good fit there. Like if you're checking all the boxes, in terms of all these elements that I am providing, that definitely, translates into a good fit. There's also these inclination for appetite and these thirst and hunger for appetite. And that is not just pursuing for the sake of pursuing actions or completing tasks, but having this strategic mindset of why are you doing things, what is moving you, and what are you seeking to have ultimately as a positive impact. So that's also something that is experienced that permeates into the culture, a lot of intentionality and a high level of awareness. And then finally, like in terms of all these components, is this fearlessness to lead and to own. Now, there are different roles that one can play in a team setting, and that can be leading or being the second on board or being, supporting and producing all that needs to be produced towards a common objective. But what's important is that there is, regardless of the role, regardless of the context, there is this natural inclination to be seen and to take control, to take the reins, to lead and to own. And so in that, Silpa, I believe, on one hand, you can look at these from the perspective of a snapshot of the culture, but then you can also see it from the perspective of an individual applicant and doing kind of a little bit that assessment of, am I bringing those elements to the table? And so, yeah, with that, now I think the time comes to talk about academics, And so what is the GSB looking for on these areas, Silpa?
Sure. So one thing that I think always bears repeating, and I have applicants keep in mind, is that the GSB very much has a holistic and a comprehensive evaluation approach. No single category like academics is going to solely determine the decision to admit. And as the GSB admissions team selects each class, they seek out the most promising students in terms of many of the characteristics that Tatiana had shared, the intellectual vitality or rigor, the demonstrated leadership potential, personal qualities and contributions, and that thirst to learn and to connect and to share, as well as that fearlessness in terms of their curiosity and following their curiosity. That said, the GSB is very much a place where students are solving complex problems and they're exploring big, challenging ideas from interdisciplinary perspectives in a very collaborative type of way. So as such, given the nature of that environment, the admissions committee is really seeking to evaluate how an applicant might engage within the GSB classrooms. They're looking for evidence that an applicant has had unique ideas that they've proposed or pursued, and that these applicants don't shy away from solving the toughest of problems. This intellectual vitality and engagement really, as Tatiana had mentioned, you can find it in a range of sources. You can find it across a range of disciplines. A common myth among the prospective applicants is that the folks with undergrad degrees in finance or economics are at an advantage. And if they don't have an undergrad degree in something quantitative or analytical, they are at a disadvantage. But the truth is that the GSB admits applicants from a wide range of majors and all fields of study. No field of study is at a disadvantage. Fine arts majors, social science majors, STEM, business majors, all of these are equally valued for the distinct lens or perspective they would bring to the class. And beyond being present in many different academic disciplines, the intellectual vitality and curiosity and that thirst that the GSB seeks in the applicants can also show up in multiple places in the application itself, not just in the grades, not just in the test scores. It can be seen through the letters of reference, the accounts of the supervisors or senior colleagues that they make about your contributions or impacts. This can be found in the short answers, in the types of subjects that the applicant has studied on their transcript. Really strong applicants will demonstrate this intellectual capability, not just through the academics and test scores, but we're also going to see this through their contributions that highlight their problem-solving skills, that highlight their critical thinking. These really strong applicants will demonstrate that they can not only manage the rigor of the curriculum, but that they're willing to expand their mind and share their intellectual curiosity and knowledge to really elevate the experience for their classmates. As applicants approach the GSB application, I encourage them to just think beyond the transcript, think beyond the test scores, and really just aim to highlight the times in which they've learned new things, solved tough problems, engaged the people around you to collaboratively tackle these issues or these problems, and overall sharing your knowledge and your insight with other people. So hopefully that'll give you an idea that there isn't just one cookie cutter perfect academic background, or there isn't solely, the importance placed on a GPA or a test score. That it really is open and it really is holistic. And I'd like to turn it to Tatiana to understand if professionally, when we think about the professional experience, what is the right background here?
Yeah, yep. And you'll see that there's kind of a common theme, and that is there is no one perfect recipe, and there is no one set formulation that's going to be the perfect profile or the perfect fit. Here, I mean, truly what the school is incredibly supportive of is the vast diversity that individuals with the characteristics that we mentioned before, that intellectual vitality, that academic and social stamina, that thirst and penchant for impact, that developed sense of awareness and purpose. If all the individuals bring that, it's really, it's just going to make everything richer if we have a diverse set of elements that each one of those individuals bring to the table. And that is, when it comes to career, it can be across different industries, it can be across different functions, it can be established corporates, or it can be startups, it can be in healthcare, it can be in finance. And so the richness and the vastness of all those elements that can be brought to the table is what's going to render the best result. Now, what is going to be looked into the application, like following this premise that anything that has been demonstrated in the past makes it more likely that it's going to be demonstrated in the future. And so if you have demonstrated that desire to lead, you have realized, and this is something that we're going to talk about it, like with the recommenders, but if you have chosen your recommenders well, and those recommenders are bringing to life a very specific instance in which, let's assume there was a void of leadership, and you realized that you understood what the objective was pursued, what was kind of the greater good that was being pursued, and you stepped up and you led that particular situation. Or in a different situation, someone was already taking charge, they had clear leadership of whatever needed to be developed or accomplished, and you took on a very solid second in command, and you were very aware of the results orientation. You were very sensitive to deadlines. In the process, you communicated well. In the process, you developed others. All of those elements are going to be sought after. All that evidence is what's going to be looked after in kind of that progression or that professional experience. It's through those instances and through those moments in which you have manifested those leadership behaviors. Again, regardless of the context. There is that desire and that energy to lead that's going to be sought. There's that appetite for impact. There is that sense of purpose and direction. And more importantly, that growth trajectory. Again, there are no absolutes. It's not that you have to start at a specific point. It is more the direction of travel. And if in that direction of travel, you're manifesting that growth, you're manifesting that capacity to evolve and to take on increased responsibility, you're manifesting that clarity of purpose in terms of taking the role that's going to be for the benefit of what the ultimate objective is and for the natural setup of the team that you're interacting with. All those pieces are the ones that are going to be relevant in terms of that professional experience that it's been observed and assessed through the resume in terms of that growth trajectory, in terms of that increased sense of responsibility, in terms of those instances and moments in which there was certain demonstration of those leadership behaviors. And then, of course, that's also going to be looked on at the recommendation letters. And so that is, that's basically what gives us the right background in terms of that professional experience. Again, there are no formulas, no recipes in terms of a specific trajectory. It's more how that trajectory has manifested and the kinds of things that you have been doing that can be offered as very, very specific elements of evidence and very specific instances and examples throughout. And so with that, Silpa, let's pivot to extracurriculars. What is Stanford looking for in that section?
Sure. So the extracurriculars part of the application, or activities part of the application, it allows the admissions committee to have a look at your passions and your hobbies and your commitments outside of school or work. This is an opportunity for you to share how you spend your time, the different dimensions of your, of who you are and your interests and such. So you can show them the person behind the application, show them that multidimensional look beyond what might be highlighted in the application in terms of your education and your professional background. Now, it very well may be that this section is going to help you illustrate that you'll strengthen the communities around you through involvements like tutoring or coaching or volunteering, but different varieties of extracurriculars are more than okay as well. Commitment to excellence and demonstrated leadership potential can also be seen through continued commitment to activities like sports or musical performance, creative writing or photography or theater or martial arts. It could even include involvement with various initiatives at work if they go beyond your functional role. Oftentimes, I might receive the question, well, I work 80 hours a week, or I, as a consultant, I travel a lot. It's not easy for me to be able to engage within my community at regular cadence, do a weekly commitment, volunteering or something. I would then just remind, let's look at it differently. Let's look beyond your functional role. What else might you be involved in at work? Is there any culture building? Is there any training or recruiting initiatives you're part of? Or perhaps you run marathons, or have been playing the violin since you were 6 years old. It really just, there are many different ways to show leadership potential and impact or intellectual curiosity through these extracurriculars. So as such, there isn't really any particular type of extracurricular that is going to be considered advantageous or the best. And I think that it also isn't necessary to have a dozen extracurriculars. I think deep impact and commitment to a select few activities or extracurriculars can be equally powerful. So to approach this aspect of the application, I recommend that applicants think about where they've demonstrated active engagement in their interests or in their activities, either within university or within their communities. And communities might mean, the personal communities, cultural communities, work communities, where they've demonstrated that engagement and that impact and that commitment. And I think that's really what the admissions committee is looking to understand here. So one of the parts of the application that I'm sure gives most people perhaps the highest degree of anxiety, or perhaps they feel is the most time-consuming part of the application is the essays. So Tatiana, I'd love for you to share if you have any top essay tips on the GSB's essays.
Absolutely. And, I love every single piece of the application, but I think essays are my favorite, my absolute favorite, because this is an amazing opportunity to stop and to pause and to understand what is it that has been driving you, what has made you, what has shaped you, what makes you vibe, who are you now, and where are you heading? And so with that, I'm thinking about the first two essays, like the mandatory ones, the what matters most to you, and then the why Stanford. And the way that I like to approach these essays is the what matters most to you and why. It's almost like the past and the present, because you're explaining, all those things that had an impact on you. Different instances, pivotal moments in your childhood and throughout, college years, role models, particular difficulties or lack of difficulties. Exactly what makes you who you are, and you are a very unique individual, compared to all the others that are going to be doing the application. And then once you have fully assessed what has made you and who you are, then you start looking into the future and you start looking into what's your ambition, what can you visualize, where are you heading? Because as competitive as it is, to get into Stanford or any of the top programs, that it could almost hint that it's an end in and of itself. It's not an end in and of itself. It's a means to an end. You're going to business school to get where. And in articulating that, it's very important to not only mention the where you're heading, which can be, as specific or broad, as your visualization is at that point in time. But then you can, in fact, articulate what are the things from Stanford as a community, from its, tremendous muscle of faculty and research, as an all-encompassing, vibrant group of individuals that you're going to be learning from day in and day out. The legacy of the school, every single subject, club, across the street, a subject that you can get your hands on. So it's very important to be, very introspective and owning exactly the past, present, the what matters most, the what has made you who you are, and why is it that you're favoring that one thing that matters most to you, and then where are you heading? And in the where are you heading, explain to me, how does Stanford fit in? What are where's going to be the symbiosis of what are you bringing to the table and what are you getting from the school, the community, and so on. And so that's for the essays, of rigor. But then there are the optional essays, which I love to always say, take the optional out of, out of that part, because definitely take advantage of answering, the background question and the impact essays. And so as for the background question, it says, tell us the life experiences that have shaped certain recent actions or decisions, that you have made. And so one can think that short answer, that's part of the application form, it's definitely going to be influenced, and there's going to be heavy input from the what matters most to you. But then in this case, you are taking things to very applicable and very clear ways, of what has influenced me in the past, what has been relevant to me, what constitutes my background, and how that has permeated in a decision that I have made. And so very applicable, very clear, and it's, again, a great opportunity for you to present yourself with full force and full sense of awareness of who you are. And then the impact essays. There are you have this amazing possibility of offering 3 examples in which you have had a positive impact in almost any space in your life. It can be academic, it can be professional, it can be extracurricular, it can be personal. So there, to some extent, as much as the what matters most should stay away from what you've done, and it should be more about who you are, here on these impact questions, there you can talk about what you've done. And not only just narrated and from a task by task perspective, but with the added insight of why was that an impactful situation to you and to others, and kind of wrapping it all together. And so with these, tackling the essays, with pouring your sense of self-awareness, your deep introspection in the what matters most, projecting where are you heading, demonstrating that sense of intentionality, that thirst, and that sense of purpose in the why Stanford, with a very clear reason of why Stanford is the right place for you. And then bringing things into action through how you have manifested your background, in a recent action or decision. And then those amazing 3 opportunities to expand on specifics that you've done, the accomplishment and the impact you've had. I mean, with that, you're sharing with the admissions committee these invaluable information that they could not possibly glean just from a GMAT score or a GPA or a resume. They could get some hints from the letters of recommendation, but these essays are just going to complete the picture in the most amazing way. And so, like that's, I think, where I always recommend to devote the brunt of the effort and the time. And so with that, Silpa, I want to turn it back to you, so that we can talk about recommendations, because they are quite relevant as well.
Right. So the letters of reference, this is one of the parts of the application that many applicants might not register the importance of right away. Planning for these letters of reference should not be an afterthought. The admissions committee is going to look to past trends and historical behavior to predict that future potential or future behavior. And to that end, they are going to be looking at your letters of recommendation to understand the weight of your impact and your contributions. So these letters are a really unique piece of the application, as they're the only part that's going to be submitted by someone other than you, someone other than the applicant. So AdCom welcomes the opportunity to hear about the applicant's strengths and impacts from the perspective of others, particularly given the nature of Stanford and the collaborative environment. They will want to know not just the impacts you've made, but how you went about that, how you engaged other people, how you collaborated in order to drive that impact. So applicants are going to be asked to submit 2 letters of reference, one from a current direct supervisor, as well as one from someone else's supervisor work. You might find yourself in a situation in which having the direct supervisor write the letter isn't feasible. For example, if you are self-employed, or if you work for a family member, or if you started a new job, or your direct supervisor doesn't know that you're applying to business school. In that case, it's good to go with the next best alternative. This can be someone from the board, or a client, or an indirect supervisor who's really quite familiar with your day-to-day work. The important thing is to just be sure to choose recommenders who really know your work, and who can really convey detailed and specific examples of your contributions and how you went about making them. Give them ample time to write detailed and comprehensive letters. We don't want to rush this process, because we'll want them to include stories and share examples of your behaviors, of your working style, your personal qualities and your contributions, rather than just simply offering overly general praise and compliments. We'll need to substantiate that with detailed examples. Many times applicants ask, or they wonder if it's advantageous to get a recommendation from somebody who has the highest title, or perhaps is a GSB alum, or someone who is a really exceptional writer. But the truth is that the title doesn't matter, the alumni status doesn't matter, and recommenders who aren't natural writers, or for whom perhaps English is a second language, can really write strong and compelling endorsements, because what really matters here is whether they're able to convey a detailed and compelling account of the applicant's impact and who that applicant is. So a compelling LOR, or letter of reference, is going to highlight a really strong trajectory and a demonstrated pattern of excellence. And likely it will come from someone who has known you well and has had significant and direct involvement with you over the past few years. These are the people who can write thoughtfully about your impact and how you achieved it. And they can also provide detailed anecdotes. They can provide examples to substantiate the statements they're making and then the praise they're giving you. So while applicants can select references from work, from the community, from extracurricular organizations, the best ones tend to come from the workplace. The strongest ones tend to come from the workplace. And it is more than okay to have 2 references from the same organization. It's just, above all else, most importantly, just choose 2 people who can best capture your aptitude, your impact, and your personal qualities, and share who you are with the admissions committee. So we've tackled the parts of the application. So once those are submitted, and an applicant gets the great news that they were invited to interview at the GSB and has cleared that hurdle. Tatiana, what can one expect from these GSB alumni interviews, and how might they prepare for them?
Absolutely. And so interviews are conducted by alums, and so they are only going to have read your resume. They don't have access to the entire application. And to some degree, it is, kind of a way to evaluate through the alumni lens the individual, the candidate, the applicant. How is that applicant presenting him or herself, and how likely is that individual going to fit into that culture? Be part of that very vibrant and very energetic group of individuals. And so in preparing for the interview, you need to be clear that you are the expert in terms of the content of what you're going to share. You're the expert because you are the one who participated in this project or that. You are the one who received a certain piece of feedback and acted on it. You are the one that have experienced, like any instances and any examples that you're going to be offering. But by being the expert, that does not make you the expert in the delivery. And so what we constantly recommend is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Anticipate the types of questions that you're going to be asked. Things of the sort of, walk me through your resume. Tell me the reasons behind, the rationale behind your decisions. Why this college? Why this major? Why this first job? Why this second job? Give me a visual of, kind of the transitions between the different sections. Tell me what was motivating you, what was happening in your life, and then why do you want to come to Stanford? What's your logic? And so in being ready to address those questions, it's not only going to, ensure a good delivery, but it's also going to put you in the right state of mind in which you feel confident enough that you have the capacity to stay present and, in fact, to have a conversation with the interviewer. Because it's important not just to, go to the interview and make it transactional, provide the information, do a tit for tat. This needs to be more a moment and an opportunity to create an impact on the interviewer. And I love to repeat these Maya Angelou quote that people will forget what you say and what you do, but they will never forget how you make them feel. To some degree, that's exactly what we're going for. You are going to deliver good quality content because you are the expert and you have practiced enough, but you're going to do it in a way that it establishes a really nice back and forth, a really nice dance with the interviewer, so that by the end of the interview, the individual is going to think, oh, this person is quite interesting. I really love the level of energy and delivery that individual brought to the table. But more importantly, this felt so easy. This was a conversation. And so that's the kind of situation that you are to expect. But as much as any public speaker that it looks like, they were born speaking publicly and they are so good, that doesn't happen without practice. That happens with, like a lot of iterations and a lot of rounds. And so that, again, you can be in the right mindset, in the right frame of mind, feeling confident and well-grounded. And that's going to bring you to being present and to responding to the verbals and nonverbals of the interviewer and establishing that really nice, confident, beautifully paced conversation. And so with that, Silpa, I think we're ready now to open up for questions.
Sure. So staying on topic of the interviews, one of the questions was asking for confirmation of the materials that the interview will have seen prior to meeting the alumni interviewer. This is just based on the resume, is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
So,
and sorry, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I'm just differentiating. I mean, there are other business schools that interviews are conducted by actually individuals from the admissions committee and the admissions staff. And so they have access to the rest of the interview and they might tackle in that regard at some other fronts, but not the case of the Stanford interview. No, it's only, it's alums that they get a hold of the resume as they're scheduling the interview. And that's about as much information as they're going to have for the interview.
So another question that we've received is having a career gap after a few years of experience, will this affect my application? So I think it will be important to share how you spent that gap and what the reasons for that gap were. In the application itself, you will be asked, have you ever had this career gap longer than X time period? I think in this, context is key, and the admissions team reads gently in this regard and understands that there are a lot of different situations in life that happen and that might cause a nonlinear path or perhaps a gap of sorts. So I think it'll be really critical to simply be clear about the reasons why, and if there's something else that you can highlight in terms of, and I realize this depends on the reason for the gap, if it was a restructuring or a layoff, perhaps share how you've been able to use that time to perhaps keep your skills sharp or to continue your learning or to work toward your career, planned career path or something of that sort, courses perhaps. If it was a gap for family reasons, perhaps provide the context for that. But it isn't, the gap itself won't necessarily negatively affect your application. I think the important thing is to just offer that context and offer that clarity if applicable on how that time was spent. Tatiana, is there anything you have to add on that one?
Yeah, and completely echo what you said, Silpa. And in fact, there are some other optional essays in which you can explain not only gaps, but if you had, a particular academic situation, at college, or if you struggled one quarter, one semester, like anything, because life happens, and the admissions committee is aware of that. And so the more you can elaborate, the more you can explain, and precisely that, that in the process things happened, but you didn't lose the basics of that curiosity, of that energy, of that sense of purpose, of like that penchant for impact. all of that, should be explained and should be kind of included in the application. And just as Silpa was saying, I would not immediately identify that as a showstopper. I would delve and explain and elaborate, and ultimately, it all needs to go well encompassed and well rounded in the application.
Right.
And I see another question, Silpa, in terms of extracurriculars, if there's a section or an essay, I think from Bindu. And there is a section in the application form where you're going to list the different extracurriculars that you want to include. But of course, those experiences are amazing input. They're they're just greenfield for further elaborating in the what matters most, or further elaborating in the impact mini essays. So the answer is yes, you're going to list them specifically in the application form. But then again, I think that is going to be just very rich content to be further developed as part of the essays, if you choose to do.
So I see another question. This is a great question. If we can elaborate on how a veteran's application would be looked at, considering that this is coming from a unique or non-corporate experience that would be showcased within the application. Tatiana, do you want to take a crack at this one first?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not going to be looked at differently from all other applications, because of course, a veteran that's bringing to the table, this military background, this rigor and particularities of having experienced military life, that also brings richness and diversity and a very amazing perspective to the table. So it's going to be evaluated just like, and I've worked with applicants that have had military backgrounds. I went to school with classmates that had military backgrounds. I worked with individuals that were film producers before business school. So really, there is a very broad gamut of backgrounds that are being encompassed, and in building that richness of that diversity of the class, all of these elements are considered. So there's no different approach as to any other profile or any other applicant, as they're bringing forward their application. I don't know, Silpa, if you agree with these, or
I 100% agree with that. I think that overall, what admissions committee is looking for is this track record of impact, commitment to excellence, this leadership potential, these qualities. So this can really come from all fields, and it isn't necessarily a particular career path or standard, like common career paths that are required, really. There is, within the military, within all branches of the military globally, there's great experience, there's great opportunity to showcase that leadership, to showcase that influence and that collaboration and that discipline. And some of these leadership dimensions or leadership qualities that are going to stand out to the committee. So this, very much in agreement with Tatiana, in that at the core, at a high level, they're looking for the same things. They're just going to they're going to evaluate it within the nuance of the types of roles and the types of industries that one is going to be coming from. So it's very much going to be that commitment to impact and track record of excellence that's going to stand out in all fields, corporate, military, the arts, etc. So let's see, maybe we have time for just one more before we have to close out. So this question on the interviews. Okay, so should one then customize the resume to contain extracurriculars or other things covered throughout the application as well, instead of just the professional and the academic achievements? Tatiana, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, no, like I think because the resume that you're going to be providing in your application is the resume that's going to be made available to the interviewer. I think you don't need to customize. I mean, there's definitely, if off the bat, no, the resume that you're going to be including in your application, there are different sections, right? It's not only the professional. You have the academic, you have the professional, and then you have other areas of interest. And so you can include, like from the get-go, like some of the relevant passion projects, extracurriculars that are meaningful to you, for sure. Now, in terms of the interview, like the resume is the starting point, but really what's important is that you bring yourself to life during that conversation. And you can offer, content from various aspects and fronts of your life. No, you don't need to feel limited, to what's there on the resume. Of course, that's going to provide some frame of reference. That's going to be a starting point. That's going to include a lot of the relevant professional life that you have had, an academic life. But then again, in the conversation, you're going to be asked several behavioral questions, and then you can address those behavioral questions with, instances that pertain particularly to things that are in your resume or go beyond the resume.
Thank you. So thank you all for the great questions. I believe we are running short on time, so need to close out. We have covered quite a bit of content over the past hour, and we're really excited about this current application cycle, and we hope you'll feel inspired to introspect and to bring your whole self to the application. When you're ready to take that next step, a very helpful resource as you prepare to apply is our free 30-minute consultation with Fortuna, which you can sign up for on fortunaadmissions.com. During these consultations, members of our talented team are going to help dive into your background and your profile and offer their perspective on how to approach your application strategy and answer any questions that you may have. And you can find our web address below on the slide. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all again soon, and we wish you the best with your applications this fall. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Silpa.
Thank you.